Long, long ago, deep within the vast and mysterious forests of Russia, there lived a fearsome witch known as Baba Yaga. She was an old woman with supernatural powers, and it was said that she lived in a house that stood on two giant chicken legs, hidden far in the forest. Only those who got lost or accidentally offended her could find their way to her. Baba Yaga was not a simple witch. In different legends, she played different roles. Sometimes she was a merciless punisher who tortured those who broke the natural laws without mercy. Other times she was a wise guide, helping those who were lost and pure-hearted find their way. No matter what role she played, Baba Yaga was always closely linked with death and the unknown. Villagers said that Baba Yaga would appear at midnight. She rode a giant cauldron and held a broom, flying through the night sky, accompanied by creatures from the depths of darkness. Her house could move at will, avoiding anyone trying to find her. Her presence was chilling, especially in distant villages where children would never dare go out at night, and adults avoided speaking her name. Baba Yaga's house was one of the most iconic parts of her legend. It stood on two giant chicken legs and could move freely, often avoiding those with evil intentions. The door to the house was usually decorated with bones and skulls, warning uninvited guests to think twice before approaching. To enter the house, one had to say the correct magic words, or else the house would turn, keeping the door always out of reach. The chicken legs symbolized Baba Yaga's control over nature and her untethered way of life. She embodied the forces of nature, moving freely across the land. Her house was both her sanctuary and the source of her magic. The chicken legs also represented her deep connection to the natural world, as if she and the forest were one. Baba Yaga was not always evil. She represented the laws of nature. She could be a ruthless punisher, but she could also be a wise guide. In the legends, those who got lost in the forest and showed courage and sincerity might earn her help. She would use her magic to show them the way, but the price was usually a difficult challenge or a significant sacrifice. For those with ill intentions or who had committed crimes, Baba Yaga showed no mercy. She upheld the natural laws, and anyone who violated them faced her judgment. Her dual nature made people both fear her punishment and desire her wisdom and magic. There was once a man named Igor. He was a ruthless hitman, his hands stained with the blood of innocents. His name was feared in the dark world of Moscow. But the weight of his guilt and the cries of those he had killed haunted him, making it impossible for him to bear. He fled the noisy city, seeking refuge in a remote village, hoping to find peace. However, even in this secluded village, Igor could not escape the shadows of his past. The tales of Baba Yaga haunted him, especially in the dead of night. He often heard whispers in the wind as if someone was calling his name. One night, Igor was woken by strange noises, like whispers carried by the wind, mixed with the rustling of leaves. He looked out the window and saw a dark figure moving slowly at the edge of the forest, approaching his house. As the figure came closer, Igor saw her clearly, an old woman in a black cloak, her face lined with deep wrinkles and her eyes glowing with a cold light. Baba Yaga approached Igor's house, her voice low and raspy, as if chanting an ancient spell. Her eyes were sharp, piercing into Igor's soul, seeing all his sins. She did not punish him right away, but gave him a choice: either accept her trials to atone for his sins or face unending terror and inevitable death. Igor knew he had no way out. He chose to accept Baba Yaga's challenge, hoping that by passing her trials he could redeem himself. But this would not be easy. Baba Yaga led him deep into the forest, where he had to face every wrong he had ever done. Baba Yaga brought Igor to a dark clearing. The air around him was so heavy it was hard to breathe. He saw the souls of those he had killed, pale faces with eyes full of accusation and hatred. Each soul stared at him, their gaze piercing his heart like needles. Igor had to ask for their forgiveness one by one, but the souls remained silent, simply watching him. With every word of apology, Igor's voice trembled. His heart was filled with fear and regret, and the faces seemed to remind him of his past cruelty. He fell to his knees, tears blurring his vision. He knew he had to truly feel remorse deep in his heart before the soul's gaze would soften and eventually fade away. Next, Baba Yaga led him to a forest filled with thorns and snakes. There was no clear path, only thick thorn bushes and writhing snakes. Igor had to walk through it barefoot, each step bringing sharp pain. Thorns tore at his skin, and snakes hissed at his feet, ready to strike. He clenched his teeth, sweat and blood mixing as they ran down his face. The thorns tore his skin again and again, but he kept moving forward. Every time he fell, he had to use all his strength to get back up, knowing that stopping meant failure and that he would never atone for his sins. His legs shook, his wounds burned, but he kept telling himself that only by enduring could he find redemption. Finally, Baba Yaga brought him to a maze made of countless mirrors. Each mirror reflected his past sins and cruelty. He saw himself holding weapons, saw the helpless victims, heard their cries and pleas. The reflection of himself was emotionless, as if he had lost his humanity long ago. Igor had to break these mirrors, face his past, and confront his fears. He punched the mirrors, shards flying, cutting his hands, blood flowing freely, but he did not care. He shattered mirror after mirror, and each time they broke, it felt like a piece of the darkness inside him shattered too. He felt pain like never before, but through that pain, he slowly regained the remorse and humanity he had once lost. The maze seemed endless. At every turn there was another mirror waiting for him, but Igor did not give up. He knew that only by finding his way out of this dark maze could he truly face his inner self and find the path to redemption. When Igor finally completed all the trials, he returned to Baba Yaga. Her eyes were still cold, but her voice carried a hint of forgiveness. "You have faced your sins and completed the trials, but your soul still carries a heavy burden," she said quietly. "You must use the rest of your life to atone, to help those in need, and only then will you find true peace within yourself." Igor knelt on the ground, tears streaming down his face. He knew he could not change the past, but he could choose how to face the future. From that day on, Igor dedicated himself to helping those in the village who needed it. He used his hands to build houses, help the villagers with their crops, and protect them from threats. Baba Yaga never appeared again, but her legend continued to spread among the villagers. Whenever night fell, people would remember the former hitman who found redemption through Baba Yaga's trials. And the story of Baba Yaga served as a reminder to all: sins are never forgotten, and only by facing one's inner self can one find true peace and redemption.